Los Angeles is the homeless capital, certainly of the West Coast, and possibly of the North American continent. And it's obvious why, because if you are going to be homeless, you're much better off being homeless here than on the streets of New York City where you'll freeze to death. But nonetheless, we've wrestled with this issue for generations now, and we've tried everything except what they're trying in Columbia, South Carolina. The Columbia City Council passed a resolution, passed a bill that effectively makes homelessness illegal in parts of the city. It was proposed by Councilman Cameron Runyan, and he joins us right now on a Newsmaker line. Welcome aboard, Councilman Runyan. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being with us. I've spent a lot of time at homeless shelters in Los Angeles. Some of them do just such amazing work. The Midnight Mission comes to mind immediately. And it's such a difficult issue because every person who got on the street requires massive interdiction to get them off the street. You've got drugs and alcohol, you've got all kinds of abuse issues, and then you've got a lot of mental issues that you have to unravel. This is very labor intensive. But I believe that by legalizing vagrancy, you make the problem much worse. You take tools out of the toolbox to get people off the streets. So while I'm sure you've been accused of being a heartless SOB for doing this, I actually believe that this gives law enforcement an opportunity to actually help people, not just make their lives harder.
Well, you just hit it. And I do want to correct one thing. Columbia City Council, the city of Columbia, has not made homelessness illegal. All we are doing is we are enforcing the existing laws that we already have on the books for trespassing, public defecation, public drunkenness, etc. So we have not passed any new ordinances. We've not passed a new law to make anything illegal. But I do want to say that right now, the only tool that we have in our belt to provide help for those who are literally stranded on the streets of this city without any hope, without any help, and without any path forward is law enforcement. And we are arresting the homeless in this city at the highest rates in the history of our city. We've seen a 42% increase in the number of homeless on the streets of this city in just the past 2 years. We are on track to have a 106% increase in the number of arrests for violations of the vagrancy ordinances that we just mentioned a second ago. And so we're seeing a really disturbing trend line. And so as an elected official, when I start looking at this problem, I say we have got to provide an outlet for relief, for help, and for hope for those who are stuck on the streets of this city without any path forward. And so that's where all of this came from and why we have before us a proposal to open an emergency response for the next 7 months as we move towards a longer-term response after that, to give these folks a place to go where we can pair them up with the service providers, which we have a lot of capacity in this city, service providers, faith-based, et cetera, to get them into a facility and then out within 7 days. The goal is not to keep them there any longer than 7 days, to pair them up with a provider and get them off the streets and into a program where they can get the help that they need.
We're talking with Cameron Runyan, who's a city councilman in Columbia, South Carolina, the state capital. Beautiful state, by the way. I've been to Charleston a bunch of times. Wow, what a pretty place. Now, listen, L.A. is doing exactly the opposite. I don't know if you know this. I covered this extensively. The city of Los Angeles, in its infinite wisdom, just reclassified 92 misdemeanors as infractions, which no longer show up on people's criminal records. And I'm not making this up. What they turned into infractions are public defecation and sleeping on the streets. We literally, essentially decriminalize sleeping on the streets. And, it's always been my theory that if you build it, they will come. And if the city of L.A. is going to say, well, you can sleep on the streets and actually poop on the sidewalks, and it's not a criminal matter, what do you think you're going to have? You're going to have more of it.
Well, I will tell you that love, which is what we're promoting here, care to be our brother's keeper, to take care of the least among us, love without accountability is not love at all. So if you just provide for folks and you don't give accountability, then you're setting yourselves up for massive failure for yourself and for those who you are trying to help. And so it's difficult. You have to maintain balance and a healthy tension between caring for people and providing accountability for them. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here.
A classic example of this in the 1980s when Ed Koch was mayor of New York City, and I still live there. There was a deep freeze, came down from Canada. and the temperatures plunged like to 10 below for a week. And Ed Koch ordered the NYPD to round up the homeless and bring them forcibly, if necessary, into shelters. The ACLU got an injunction to stop it, saying it was, without cause. And as a result, the coroner's office was picking frozen dead bodies off the sidewalks for 7 days. I mean, there's false compassion here, and sometimes this might seem draconian, but the situation is so critical when people hit the streets that to just allow people to continue to live in the streets is not a kindness to anybody. Thanks for coming on with us. We'll check in with you in a couple of months and see how it's going. Appreciate it. Cameron Runyan,